It was supposed to be a simple Saturday afternoon, the kind where married couples stroll through the mall, argue over shirt colors, and end the day with ice cream. I had been married to Paul for 12 years, and though we'd had our share of ups and downs, I believed we had built a life of quiet trust. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. We had a modest home, 2 cars, and a joint account that had seen both good days and lean ones. That day, Paul had insisted we go shopping together. "You deserve something nice," he said, smiling as he handed me a store card. "Go try on that blue dress you liked. I'll wait right here." I smiled back, touched by the gesture. It wasn't like him to suggest shopping trips. Usually, I had to drag him along. Inside the fitting room, the lighting was warm and the air smelled faintly of perfume and new fabric. I slipped into the dress, turning from side to side, trying to decide if it flattered me. It did, but something about Paul's sudden generosity had me wondering what the occasion was. Maybe he was just trying to make up for being distant lately. He'd been on the phone constantly, whispering, leaving early for work, coming home late. Every time I asked, he said, "Just business, love. You know how the market is these days." I wanted to believe him as I adjusted the hem. I heard voices just outside the fitting room curtain. Paul's voice, and another one female, soft, confident. "Did she ask about it?" the woman said. Paul chuckled quietly, the kind of laugh that made my heart tighten. "No, she didn't notice a thing. The loan went through yesterday." The world froze around me. The air seemed to vanish. My heart pounded so loud I thought they might hear it. "Loan? What loan?" My hands went cold as his words replayed in my head. "She didn't notice. The loan went through." I pressed my ear closer to the curtain, my breath caught in my throat. The woman whispered again, "You're lucky she trusts you so much. Most wives would have noticed by now." Paul sighed, a sound I recognized, the one he made when he was guilty, but trying to sound calm. "She's too busy with her work. Besides, by the time she finds out, the deal will already be done. I'll pay it back before she ever sees the statement." I nearly tore the curtain open right then, but something stopped me. I wanted to hear everything. My hands trembled as I steadied myself against the wall. The woman's voice turned teasing. "You really think you can pull this off? What if she finds out?" Paul chuckled again, low and confident. "She won't. She never checks the accounts. I just needed the collateral, and her signature was already there. She trusts me. She always has." I felt my stomach twist into knots. My signature. Collateral. He used my name for something big enough to need a loan. I backed away slowly, sinking onto the small bench in the corner of the fitting room. The sound of my own heartbeat drowned everything else out. I wanted to cry, to scream, to burst through that curtain and demand an explanation. But my body refused to move. When I finally stepped out, they were gone. Just an empty hallway lined with mirrors reflecting a woman I barely recognized. I changed back into my clothes, left the dress on the hook, and walked out of the store like a ghost. My legs moved, but my mind was spinning. I replayed every recent moment in our marriage, the late nights, the sudden business calls, the way he avoided eye contact when I mentioned our savings. I had trusted him completely, and now that trust felt like a wound I couldn't close. I didn't confront him right away. Instead, I went home, opened my laptop, and logged into our joint bank account. The moment the page loaded, my breath hitched. The balance was far lower than it should have been. My eyes darted to the transactions list. A loan deposit, $120,000, transferred out within days. My name was on the documents. He'd forged my digital signature. For hours, I just sat there in silence, staring at the screen. When Paul came home that night, he kissed my cheek as if nothing was wrong. I could smell the faint trace of perfume on his jacket, something floral and unfamiliar. Did you find anything you liked? He asked casually. I nodded faintly. I did, but it wasn't on sale. He laughed, poured himself a drink, and turned on the TV. That night, I didn't sleep. I waited until he started snoring, then slipped out of bed and sat by the window, my mind racing. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I called the bank first thing. The woman on the other end confirmed my worst fears. The loan was under both our names, secured against the house. Defaulting would mean losing everything. Over the next few days, I played my part. I smiled, cooked, asked about his business, pretending nothing was wrong. Meanwhile, I gathered every document, every email, every transaction record. I learned that the woman he was with wasn't a coworker, she was a real estate broker. He'd taken the money to invest in a private property scheme with her, hoping for quick profit. But the deal had already collapsed, and the money was gone. On Friday evening, I asked him to meet me for dinner at his favorite restaurant. He looked surprised but pleased. I wore the same blue dress I had tried on that day in the store, the one I never bought, but couldn't stop thinking about. I ordered wine, smiled across the table, and waited. When he leaned back, relaxed, I said quietly, I stopped by the bank today. His fork froze midair. I watched the color drain from his face. What? He asked, his voice trembling. They told me about the loan, I said, my tone calm, steady. About how my signature was on the papers. About how our house is now collateral for your lies. He opened his mouth, but I raised my hand. Don't bother. I heard you in the fitting room, Paul. Every word. He stared at me, speechless. I took a long sip of wine. You know what's funny? I said softly. You always said marriage was about trust. I just never realized you meant mine was your bank account. Then I slid an envelope across the table. Those are copies of the loan documents and divorce papers. He didn't say a word. His eyes darted around the restaurant as if looking for an escape. But there was none. I stood up, adjusted my coat, and added, You said I'd never notice. You were right. Until now. Then I walked out, leaving him there silent, pale, and utterly alone, outside. The night air felt lighter than it had in months. The city lights shimmered on the wet pavement, and for the first time in a long time, I felt free. I didn't know what the future would hold, but I knew one thing for certain. I would rebuild, piece by piece, without him. Because sometimes, the moment you lose everything you thought you needed is the moment you finally find yourself.